إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. All praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, we beseech Him, and we seek refuge in Allah from the evil of ourselves. Whomsoever Allah guides, then none can misguide him. Whomsoever Allah leaves from His guidance or He misguides, then none can guide that person aright. I bear witness and I publicly testify that none has the right to be worshipped in truth but Allah, and that Muhammad ibn Abdullah is His slave and His messenger to proceed. My respected brothers and sisters in Islam, I greet you with the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Again, I'd like to welcome you back to possibly the last, if not this week, the next week will be our last lecture in the Atheism, the New Religion. And last week, alhamdulillah, we looked at a number of important things. What did we look at last week? Anybody remember? We looked at science. Excellent, yes? We looked at the philosophy of science. Before that, we looked at evil. One of the biggest problems that we have is evil and understanding the role of evil. Just today, on my way here, a brother was telling me about another brother who was very prominent in a community, how he left Islam. His brother left Islam. He's a revert, he left Islam. And one of the reasons cited for him leaving Islam is that the brother didn't find answers to his questions. Many times as Muslims, our concerns don't reflect the reality of other people. What do I mean? So I'm from overseas. Give me a country. Give me a Muslim country. Kuwait. I'm from Kuwait. As a Kuwaiti or a Kuwaiti person, my concerns are where? Kuwait, isn't it? Yes? I watch the news. I follow what's happening in my home country. This is normal and this is natural. No matter where you are from, if you're from another country, once you migrate to another country, you usually maintain ties with your old home. Am I right? However, whereas back home may be your focus, those people who are not from back home are not focused at back home. They're focused where? Here. And they have needs. And this is the thing about revert Muslims. Many of us who are born in Islam, grew up in Islam, we have social networks. What do I mean? If I want to get married, call my auntie, call my uncle, I can get married. If I need to borrow some money, I'll call my uncle, call my auntie, borrow money. I remember when I used to work overseas, to get married would cost you £20,000 for the mahar, the dowry that is given to the woman. The bride price, I think they translate it as well. Now 20k is a lot of money or not a lot of money? It's an awful lot of money. That's in fact someone's salary for a year. Now, if you're a secretary, that's your salary for the year. So if you have to pay 20k, you never get married. Am I right? You never get married. Or you spend a decade saving. However, in that country that I lived in, MashaAllah, tabarakallah, if you're going to get married, your whole family, and it was a tribal society, so you have lots of family. So your uncle will give you 4,000, this one will give you 4,000, your cousin will give you 2,000. You know, by the end of the day, everyone's giving you money. 100,000, boom, just like that. And you do the same thing, it's reciprocal. When your cousin wants to get married, you do the same thing. If you're a revert to Islam, what do? If you don't have that social network, you're stuck. And many brothers are stuck. Brothers want to get married because they're not from a particular ethnicity. They can't get married because the ethnicity they are from there are many racial or racist stereotypes. And we have racist stereotypes. For example, if I ask the question, what color is a drug dealer? What would we say? Black, isn't it? Yes? But is that true? Statistically, no. Statistically, no. There are many stereotypes that we have in terms of selling drugs. For example, think about it. Black people don't own boats. Do you know black people who own boats? No. You know a black person owns a boat? Yeah. In this country? I don't mean a dinghy or something like that back home. A boat that you can ship things in. You don't own boats. So how does the drug get into the country? Not via black people. Are you with me? Or the odd 1 or 2, 3 or 4, 10, 20, 30 drug mules. The vast majority come from ships which we don't own. So the whole notion of us being the prime drug dealers eclipses with reality. Doesn't make sense. But people have those stereotypes. So if you're a revert to Islam, you don't have that social network to help you. Also, as a revert to Islam, you have needs. So you have children, you may want to put them in a Muslim school. Where if you're born in Islam, you feel culturally that you're Muslim, isn't it? So your kids know, okay, my wife is from Mombasa, myself, I'm from Mombasa. We have a strong Islamic culture, yes or no? So our kids grow up knowing they're from Mombasa, they speak Kiswahili. Every year we go back home to Mombasa, they have those links. They have those links. Where revert, you don't have any of those links. So you need something to help you. Muslim schools. And if Muslims don't care about school, then there is no Muslim school. Am I right? So you have these needs. So if you come to Islam, as well as social needs as well, just somebody to talk to sit with. You know, as a Christian, if you have your family, you can go and sit with them and talk with them and drink with them and socialize with them. But when you become Muslim, some of the social things you used to do before, you can't do anymore, like sitting with people and drinking alcohol, for example. And you may go to everyone's house, everyone has alcohol. So why don't you get something? Inshallah, no problem, don't worry about it. Are you with me? So that social aspect may be cut off from you. And also, sometimes because you follow a different religion, your family may object to it and treat you differently. So you need people to socialize and mix. Where us as born in Islam, we have our families. That's our priority, isn't it? If I have a problem, who do I go to? The guy at work? No. Call my brother up, call my sister up, call my mum up. Maybe that person doesn't have those links, and what happens? They feel socially isolated. One brother told me something very important. He said there was a brother who he met him when he was non-Muslim, and then he met him when he was Muslim. And he was so happy he became Muslim. Then he met him on another occasion and he seemed to have left Islam. So he asked him what happened. So he said that brother, before he was a Muslim, everybody was around him, crowding him, calling him, come eat, come. As soon as he took his shahada, it just evaporated. All that support disappeared. Now look at that. What's the conclusion? For that person, well, I need a social network. Humans are social. And if I can't get it in Islam, I'm going to have to, Islam may be an impediment in the person's mind, a means of stopping me from being social. So if I leave Islam, I make more friends. You see it? You see that? So the person leaves Islam because of the social aspect. Also, us as Muslims, we may need needs that a new Muslim has different needs. For example, a new Muslim may need somebody to help build their character and build themselves spiritually. And if they come to Islam and they don't see it, because Muslims are too busy with dunya or other things that they are concerned with, that person doesn't feel spiritually connected or uplifted and they leave. So I was saying to a brother this week, imagine this. If one person leaves Islam a week, in 1 month that is how many? 4 people. How much is that in 1 year? 48 people. In 1 decade, something like what, 480 people. Who's happy about that? Raise your hands if you're happy. Who is concerned about that? I know I'm concerned. So, if we're concerned, we've got to realize there's a big job ahead of us. There's an awfully big job ahead of us. None of us can sleep and rest if you really think about the work needed to support and help Muslims. Put aside the work we need to do with those people who fall into terrorism. Those people who fall into extremism are usually from non-religious backgrounds. And they are brainwashed, most of them, into an ideology which claims to be Islamic when it has nothing to do with Islam. So imagine the work we've got to do with these terrorists. People fall into extremism. Over 500 people went to join the un-Islamic state. 500 people. Many of them probably killed. Young people, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 killed. In a battle over nothing. Because it had nothing to do with Islam but territorial gains of the Ba'ath Party. We just have that to deal with. Imagine we have that to deal with. What about the everyday needs of Muslims in this country in supporting them? Their pastoral needs. What about those Muslims in prison? Their needs. People go to prison, become Muslim. When they come out, what happens to them? Off Islam. Why? Because I need help and support. No one's giving it to me, but the mandem are saying, come round, we'll look after you. I'll go around to the mandem and I'll go back to my old ways. Isn't it? So we have lots of work to do. This point is important because it's something I emphasized last week and the week before. That we are looking, this whole course that we are doing about atheism, the new religion, is to give us the skills to address non-Muslim people and Muslim people in our society. We spend our time giving dawah to Muslims, 99.9% of the time trying to call Muslims back to Islam. It's not to non-Muslims. Our role and responsibility in this society is to educate non-Muslims about Islam. A man could live next door to Muslims for 30 years and know nothing about Islam except for we eat spicy food. That's it. Sum total of his knowledge about Islam. And that's a shame and a disgrace on our part. And I'm to blame as much as anyone else. That our neighbours and people around us, we should educate them. This is Islam. So when they see what's happening, I remember back in the old days when I used to be in South London back in the 90s, and one of the brothers got into an argument with a non-Muslim brother. Yeah, a non-Muslim brother. And he said, the Muslim brother was like flexing, like he was going to attack him. And the non-Muslim guy said, look, you ain't Muslim. Muslims don't talk like that. Muslims don't behave like that. See? He understood that Muslims are not aggressive people or violent people. He understood that. And so he put the brother to shame. You know, how can you be Muslim you behaving like that? Like we see today. How can you be Muslim you acting like a roadman? How? Or acting like a gangster? How? So the point. If people were educated about Islam, when they hear racists talk about Islam as this, that, the other, they say, look man, I know about Islam. Studied Islam. People taught me Islam. And that ain't Islam. Look at that. I met a Jewish man, an Orthodox Jewish man in North London, in Tottenham. He grew up in Yemen. He was Yemenese. And I was talking to him and he said to me, when I was young, we learned the Quran. I said, how did you find the Quran? He said, hulu, sweet. So that man knows the difference between Islam and what's not Islam. Went to school, they studied Islam. He knows about the Quran, he has an idea what Muslims can or can't do, what should or shouldn't do. And you find some communities like that, putting us to shame. You know, Muslims ain't roadmen, or gangsters, or bagmen, or drug sellers, or drug dealers. They know that, putting us to shame. So it's important because some of the things that we're doing in this course is to address people who are Muslim who don't know, or non-Muslim who don't know. And so last week we started to talk about the philosophy of science. And we completed it. We said that science is a means of observation and reasoning thinking based upon particular facts about the world and the laws connected to these facts. Science, brothers and sisters, isn't just looking at the stars and saying, okay, the stars are there, this is science. No, that's an observation. Science is looking at the stars, they're making theories about the stars. Okay, why does it go round? Why does it orbit the sun or the moon? Or why does it do this? And what are the laws related to it? What are the laws? So I discover or think of a law that will enable me to say, okay, this planet goes round the moon in every 365 days. So if I count 365 days, this planet will be the same position as I see it today next year. It's a law. Yes. So it is a way of looking at facts and reasoning about facts. We said that science is limited to observation, looking at the natural world. We call this naturalism, we said last week. That science is a way of looking at the natural world, the world around us. Science doesn't deal with the supernatural. Science doesn't deal with the jinn or angels or God or anything of the unseen. It deals with the natural world here. And it doesn't offer explanations of the unseen, because it recognizes it is limited. So if I, for example, pour this cup of tea onto the floor, there is a law that tells me vaguely, oh sorry, I got a better example. These two cups, if I drop them, there's a law that tells me that rather than one of them landing first, then the other, they will land together. For example, yes? It deals with things you can see and touch. If this cup was suspended here, and someone said it's a jinn holding it, would science be able to deal with that? No. It's not something it can observe. It's not something it knows its reality. We also said that science is morally neutral. Science doesn't determine morals. We spoke about morals at length. We said either they're objective morals, morals from outside of human being, coming from God, or there isn't. And if there isn't, nothing is moral. Nothing is moral. A man throwing his baby out of the window is not immoral. A man killing another man is not immoral. Yes? However, we said, if there are objective morals, we can say something is good and something is bad because of these morals. But science is morally neutral. Some people will try to have you believe that science can answer the question about morals. How? How does science determine morals? Because something may be scientifically okay but immoral. Something may be possible according to science but immoral. And so morals are not part of science. So scientists in general don't see themselves as moral philosophers, talking about ethics or morals. That's philosophers who deal with ethics and morals. We said also there's some false assumptions. People assume things which are false. That science is the only way to find out the truth. Not true. Proof. Who's your father? Who's your mother? I'm not cussing. How do you know your mother and your father, your great-father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather? Testimony. We said this, isn't it? Even 30, 40 years ago, you would tell somebody is somebody else's baby by just looking at them. People have a skill. Look at your face, look at your mum and dad and say, yeah, this is your child. Why? The nose, the eyes, the lips. Yeah? Testimony. So we see that science is not the only way of finding truth. Sometimes also experience. So if I want to, for example, fix a car, which I've never fixed before, I may ask somebody else who's done it. They had a V8 engine. Now if you bring a V8 engine in front of me, I don't know what to do with it, except for looking at it. But there may be somebody who had an engine in front of him, and he could take it apart, put it together. Allah blessed him with that skill. So you may go to that person and say, okay, I'm doing this, but it's not working. You say, yeah, no, because you should do this first and that first. Experience. So science is not the only way to find out the truth. Also, we said, since science is so successful, scientific conclusions must be true. We said no. Because many scientific discoveries have been around later we found out they're not true. So they used to believe that when things explode or set on fire, a particular gas was given out. This was believed for hundreds of years, until it was found out that no, this gas doesn't even exist. Same with Newtonian physics. Newtonian physics was used for hundreds of years to predict the planets go around the Earth, etc. However, now, today, it's not accepted to be the truth. So here's something which was the truth, but it was wrong, but it worked. Also, science leads to certainty. No, we see this in our daily lives. One day you're told, drink lots of coffee, it's good for you. Next day you're told, don't drink coffee, it's bad for you. We can see that scientists may disagree about things. So Pluto, up until recently, was a planet. Am I right? It's a planet. Today we realize it's not a planet. So scientists themselves may have a difference of opinion about something. Also, another problem with science is a belief in naturalism, which we explained just now. That we only deal with what's here on the earth, what we can see and touch. And we've said week after week that itself is limited, because you can't see atoms or electrons. Do electrons exist? We can say no. It's little men and little women just dancing around. When they hold each other's hand, that's how electric current takes place. But certainty, so naturalism itself is limited. And it's also just a philosophy. Because many scientists deal beyond what's in the natural world. They speculate. So Stephen Hawking, the famous physicist, will speculate. And people till today speculate. For example, there is a program called Stranger Things. Have you heard of Stranger Things? It's a very famous science fiction program. Young kids in a particular part of America, and one of them has extrasensory powers. But it's based upon this thing called the upside down world. So the upside down world is held by certain physicists who say that there are planets like our planets and people like us, but in another dimension. So you see me here today in another dimension, which we can't see, we don't know where it is. There's somebody like me maybe doing something like this or something else. And it's physicists, not people of religion or people who believe in magic, physicists. Yes? So they're speculating about other worlds. And they speculate about many things. So science is not just about naturalism, what we can see, but sometimes they speculate because it's observing things and then making theories on these observations. And so then we also went on to say, concerning science, that if we look to the Quran and the Sunnah, we find many questions for the scientist, which we'll talk about the latter part. The big question we find for the scientist, and we need to be very careful about this thing of scientific miracles in the Quran. Very careful. Because if it's a miracle and science holds it to be correct, then changes, does it mean that that ayah must change? We have to be very careful. But many things that we find in the Quran, that the Prophet told us, ﷺ, which is revelation from his Lord, how did he know? How? How did he know? The Prophet ﷺ knew many things. And we're going to talk about it afterwards, inshallah, in a minute. For example, the Prophet prophesied, ﷺ, one of the signs of the Day of Judgment will be that the Arabs build tall buildings. Look at that. Tall buildings. Now, anybody knows the history of the Arabian Peninsula, while it's had very steeped civilizations, for the most part, before the time of our Prophet ﷺ, many people did not think to conquer the Arabian Peninsula because they thought nothing was there. Even the British, when they came to the Arabian Peninsula, they had protectorates, particular parts. Oman, parts of the United Arab Emirates, Yemen. But most of the Arabian Peninsula, they thought was just desert. They thought it was desert, nothing was there. Why kill yourself or get killed trying to conquer something that wasn't there? So if you went to somebody in the 1700s, the 1800s, even the 1600s, that there'll be tall buildings in the Arabian Peninsula, what would people would say? Say, you're crazy. I remember I had a friend who came to Saudi Arabia in the 90s, and he said in his mind, When he thought of Saudi Arabia, he thought it would be all desert. That's the 90s. Saudi Arabia is far from desert. It's a developed country. Just like here, it has roads and buildings, everything like that. But you see what's in people's minds up to now. But our Prophet told us from the signs of their judgment, there will be tall buildings, and some of the tallest buildings are where? In the Arabian Peninsula. Burj Khalifa is where? In the Emirates. Some of the tallest buildings, and they're building an even taller building now. Yes? The Prophet said that they will compete with each other in building tall buildings. So they built the Burj Khalifa, now somebody wants to go taller than the Burj Khalifa. Look at that. So how did the Prophet know this? So after talking about science, we went on to design. We talk about design or not yet? Not yet, alright. Right, cool. So that's what we'll talk about today, yes? When we talk about design, we are saying that the way everything is in our natural world and how it is ordered and how it works points to something very important. It points to there being somebody, astaghfirullah, something or someone that designed it. That is, it didn't just happen like that. Because if it happened haphazardly, and we'll look at some of the arguments in a minute, how is it that our planet revolves around the sun, the same axis, year in, year out, without moving 1 millimeter or 1 centimeter? How is it there's a particular frog in Alaska that can't migrate, so it stays there and it freezes as if it is dead? Then in the spring it thaws out and comes alive. How is that? These things point to there being a creator of the universe. And so we say that if we look, for example, at some of the laws that we have, it points to there being a creator. So we have, for example, gravity, which is a force of attraction of two masses. Without it, there'd be no force that would hold people down or planets down or hold them in orbit. If there was no gravity, we'd be in free fall. But we have gravity. How is that? Why did that occur? If everything happened haphazardly, just happened like that, why is there gravity? Why isn't what's happening on this earth like that in the space? Why isn't it? In space, what happens? You float around, am I right? Why is it in space we float around, on earth we don't float around? It's a very important question that can't be answered by science, but can be answered by the statement that there is a designer. It was created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by a creator who made sure that this particular force is there. Not that we have no gravity in space, but we have gravity here. Sorry, no gravity in space, no gravity here. Rather, we have gravity on this planet to keep us here. Otherwise, we have no gravity to be floating around. Also, if we look at things like nuclear force, this is made up of positively charged protons, which means that it should just fly apart. But because charges, they repel each other, the nucleus stays intact. Look at the cosmic order of things, the planet. Imagine if this planet moved just 1 millimeter, would change the whole of this planet. What is habitable and what we can't be can't sustain human life. Just 1 millimeter. Imagine that. Certain parts of the world will become desert. Even areas that are green may become desert. But certain parts of the world won't. How is this possible? Why is this possible? It points to there being a creator. If we look at our planet, we have a part of it called the habitable zone, where it has habitat, things can grow. And this may change. Certain zones become cold in the winter, and they become flourishing in the summer. Why is that? Why does it change? Why must it change? Why so precise and exact? This of course points to a creator. Also, we are shielded by the planet Jupiter. It shields us from meteorites and other particles in space. It pulls them, takes them away from us. Why is that? Why is Jupiter doing that? Why is our planet being protected by Jupiter? These are important questions, isn't it? Makes one think. Also, the planets, as we said, and we've mentioned this before, the planets. Why is it for thousands of years humans have been able to look at the planets and say, okay, I can determine my destination by looking at that planet? Why is that planet there? Even humans have taken planets to be means of telling the future. What's known as astrology. Astrology was founded 3,000 years ago in ancient Egypt. They had astrology. The belief of astrology is that planets affect us, affect our bodies, which is a myth. It doesn't affect us like that. It's superstition. So they believe, and today if you go to certain parts of the world, you go to an astrologer who will look at the stars, who will look with meticulous detail at the stars, what degree the star is at. When they want to know when you were born, not just the year, not just the day, but the exact date. Was it a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and what time were you born? And they'll go back in time to plot where were the stars, because they believe the position of the stars affects you, isn't it? How are they able not to predict the future, but to go back and calculate, to look at the stars and make sure the star was in that particular order? How? Isn't that miraculous in itself? That the stars are in a particular order, and it may go round full circle, or it may change over a period of time, but they maintain a particular order. How is that? All of this points back to there being a creator. Now sometimes people may say, well, this universe is complex, so whoever created the universe must be complex. Well, we can argue very simply. A car is complex, yes or no? If you go under the bonnet of a car, you will only then appreciate what a car is. If you just ride around in a car, you don't appreciate the history and the development of a car. Even something as small as the windscreen wipers, how intricate and detailed that is. So a modern car today, when it rains, automatically it goes on and it wipes the water away, allowing you to drive through rain. What about the rest of the car? What about the engine? How complex the engine is. But then do we go out and say, well, cars were made by who? Who makes cars? Humans, isn't it? Yes. The first engine was designed by a human being, and over time developed and improved upon by engineers. There are engineers today who sit down and say, okay, we have this BMW and we want to improve on it. How can we improve? What are the things we need to improve? Okay, petrol consumption, the noise of the engine, and they sit down tinkering around in their labs, improving it. So we recognize, yes, definitely we are more complicated than cars, because alhamdulillah we made the cars. So when it comes to the creation, we recognize there's a creator much more powerful, much more knowledge, much more wise, has more wisdom than us, that is able to make sure that everything has its due place. Now sometimes they use the expression God of the gaps. That is, when there's something that you can't explain, or you say God did it. You say Allah did it. Yes? Well, first of all, they always say science can explain it, or science will explain it. So for example now, the question is, how did the first life come into being? There is no answer. People who believe in evolution or evolution, they'll tell you there's a tree of life, and over thousands of years humans be developed from one single cell. How did that cell come about? They can't answer it. What's their answer? They'll say, yeah, science can't answer it today, but science will have an answer in the future. Look at that. So they accuse us of God of the gaps, that, oh, you always go back to God. We always go back to science, but you don't have an answer for something in the future. And our excuse or our statement is more realistic than your statement, because many things scientists have tried and given up on. So I told you the experiment where they said, okay, the first life was a small simple cell that started out in mud. How did it start? Well, the lightning hit the mud and somehow the cell came into being. So they tried to do this, replicate this in a lab. Did it work? Flopped. They did it multiple times. In the end, they gave up. They couldn't do it. They couldn't answer one of the biggest questions: how did life begin? So we say to scientists that we have a credible answer, because how do you explain all these things in perfect synchrony, all working together? How do you explain it? You can't say it just happened like that. Things don't happen like that. For example, now, if you came into this masjid and you saw a picture on the wall of a beautiful masjid, beautiful, beautiful masjid, and I said, I made that picture by getting 3 different cups of paint. One red, one green, one blue. I held them near the canvas and I threw them. And miraculously, throwing all these pots of paint, the dots went into the right place to formulate this picture of this masjid. Is that credible or not credible? It's not credible, it's incredible. How's that? It's incredible. We've never seen it done before. Yes? So the explanation of things happening haphazard, as some of the ideologues like to do, doesn't make sense. From our own experience, we've never seen something haphazard work like that. Even they say today, well, this planet is insignificant. We are an insignificant creation on an insignificant planet. Is that true? We seem to be, in our universe, the only form of life. How are we insignificant? We seem to, with that insignificance, do many things by the mercy and blessings of Allah. Do many things. How are we insignificant? How can you deem someone's life insignificant? And so, this is some of the arguments they make and some of the important points we need to bring to attention in respect to design. The last thing we'd like to look at for the next 10 minutes before we stop is prophethood. Prophethood. Some people may say, why do we talk about prophethood when we talk about atheism? I think as Muslims, our starting point is that we are trying to explain our religion to other people, where we are coming from. Not necessarily where they're coming from. Yeah? You get the difference? We understand where they're coming from and we respect that. But when it comes to religion, we want to tell them where we're coming from, where we're coming from. They need to be educated, because many people don't know where we're coming from. Richard Dawkins once said something about the Quran, and he would say, well, how do you know when you haven't read the Quran? Well, he said, well, I've never read about Nazis, something like that he said, but I know about the Nazis. Well, Nazis are different. We have been bombarded from the year dot in this country with history about Second World War. When you go to school, don't they teach about Second World War? You got to learn it in secondary school, a bit in primary school. How many World War II films are there out there? If you're born in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, I mean, every year there's a World War II film. Last year was Dunkirk. Remember Dunkirk? You know, there's always a World War II film. So you have an idea about Nazis from these films, the media that you access. You have an idea from what you learn in the curriculum that the Nazis were bad people. But is that the case with Islam? Maybe the last film you saw. In fact, the only films you see with Muslims are terrorists. I remember back when I was a non-Muslim, there was a film called Back to the Future. Is it Back to the Future? With, is it Jamie Lee Foxx? That film was one of the biggest films of its time. And at the end of it, what do they have? Him being chased by some Palestinians. They tried to kill him, and he goes back into time. Look at that. Does that really represent Palestinians in their struggle? It doesn't represent them in their struggle. So, by looking at these films, rather than being educated about the Quran or about Muslims or Palestine, you most likely be miseducated. Same thing if you look at black culture in the movies. Black culture in the movies, what is it? Empire, Get Out, all these type of films that take a particular angle of black culture. Do you learn about African culture in these films? No. Whenever you see a film about Africa, for example, the one about about diamonds, what's it called? Is it blood diamonds they call it? Something like that. How does it always, the Africans in the films are either misakin, poor, dejected people who can't do anything, victims, that's the word to use, victims, or ruthless killing warlords. Am I right? Films in Africa, today films in Africa, even one of that. Even films today. If you look at some of the films that are out there, programs out there, Luke Cage, Black Lightning, what do you have? Either black victims or black drug dealers or warlords. The same thing. There's always a warlord. This may reflect reality, but I don't know. How many of us live in areas with there black warlords? I know I don't. But these are the themes. So by watching movies, it doesn't actually give you accurate pictures of reality. They are entertainment, they're creative. And so they give you particular pictures. And so, it's important for us to center what we're doing on the Quran and on the Sunnah. From one of those things is prophecy. Our beloved Prophet ﷺ came with a message, and it's also a test for the atheist. For example, you have many people who talk about Islam and about Muslims. They will say, for example, the Prophet was a liar. Am I right? They say, he was a liar. Muhammad was a liar. But what did he lie about? What did the Prophet lie about? What are his lies? Anybody? What do they claim as his lies? His so-called lies, should I say. And when you actually look at it, well, they have no basis. For example, I met this young brother, and he was starting to read things on the internet against Islam, answering Islam. And I said, okay, tell me one of the claims. He gave me a claim that they made. I said, where is the source for this claim? One of the sad things about Christians, when they talk about Islam, they lie or they contort things. The old Orientalists, those people writing about Islam, they're called Orientalists, they used to lie, you know, barefaced lies. You read their literature, you say, that's not even true, where you get that from? And many times they base this on spurious, things that are not even authentic. So, as he's reading, I said, okay, where is the claim for this thing about the Prophet? As we read down, what's the source? Some unknown source. So how can you base your critique on Islam based upon something unknown? Not even